Fantastic. Have a good meeting.
Thank you. We are calling to order the August 23rd, 2024 meeting of the Scituate Zoning Board of Appeals. Scituate Zoning Board of Appeals is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is a disagreement. We value the participation of our community. All participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, feel welcome and respected. We ask our community members who want to participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. The ZBA meets in person via Zoom. All meetings are recorded and can be viewed on Scituate Community Television and Facebook Live. Recorded meetings are available following day on Comcast Channel 9 and YouTube. With that, we are going to take things a little bit out of order because we have a clarification on a continued application that I would like to handle first. So if we have people here, I would like to call the third application, which is continued from August 15, 2024. Ellen Mackenzie, PO Box 394, Scituate, Mass. Requesting a special permit finding in accordance with NGL Chapter 48, Section 6, and Section 810 of the Scituate zoning bylaws, and there are any other relief will take a grant without a raising new construction of a single-family dwelling at 10 Allen Place. Name and address for the record. Open mic. Hopefully, recording at you. We have the.
Yes, Alyssa Jones from Alyssa Jones Design Studio at 15 Millwork Plaza in Scituate.
All right, Ms. Jones, welcome back. The issue last time, so we had effectively approved this, but we didn't have the most current permit plan. So if you can confirm to me that the July 16, 2024 plan is the most current plan for 10 Allen Place, as revised, there we go, on August 16, 2024?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I will then remake a motion. If we had closed commentary and we had voted on this. So I will remake a motion that the board first approve the special permit for 10 Allen Place pursuant to the July 16, 2024 plan as revised on 8/16, 2024, and that the board find that the proposed raise and reconstruction introduces no new nonconformities, that it ameliorates one nonconformity, but it's not eliminated, and that to the extent it intensifies any existing nonconformities, such intensification is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That was it. We just needed this and to reconfirm it.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. All right, with that, I will call in order now the first application of Michael and Laura Reinhardt and Curtis Street, Scituate, requesting a special permit finding in accordance with NGL 48, Section 6, Section 810 of the Scituate zoning bylaws, and there are any other relief that we may grant to allow the raising and construction of a pre-existing non-conforming shed/garage located at 10 Curtis Street. Oh, have a seat, please. Name and address for the record.
Mike Reinhardt, 10 Curtis Street, Scituate, Massachusetts.
Sir, what are you attempting to do? So
Can I get up and point to the drawing? Sure.
you
Okay.
can,
All right.
that's fine.
So we're on 10 Curtis Street down by the Postie, or the former Postie, I guess.
Yeah.
And our house built in roughly 1920 had a shed 12 by 30 feet on it.
Yeah.
And the property lines were changed in the 60s, and there was a nonconformity here. And this is a survey done by Murphy and Associates. Yeah. And so it shows the setback from the corner of the shed to the property line. The shed itself caught fire 2 years ago and burned to the ground.
Okay.
with everything in it. So we would just like to rebuild the said shed on the same spot.
Okay,
I do have one question for you, though, one caveat.
yes,
I'm an engineer and I don't like things that are crooked. This is not parallel to the house. I wanted to see if I could move it over a foot to straighten it, to be straight with the house, not ever violating this 1.34 foot setback.
right, so you're not gonna alter the setback.
No,
probably, but you are going to rotate the house in a way where you comply with the current, although non-conforming setbacks.
right, and it's not going to, the building is not going to be bigger. It's still going to be 12 by 30. It will move it over approximately a foot.
So my only question for you is, do we have an actual plan as proposed?
Yeah.
Of where you're going to put the shed?
Oh,
So we have the elevation,
oh,
which is
right,
beautiful,
yeah,
but, and we have the old shed lot, but do we have that?
of exactly where it was?
Yeah, of exactly where it's going to be, because you are going to rotate it.
Well, I mean, if it's going to cause a problem, I'm not going to.
No, but regardless, we.
But here's what's no, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Regardless, we should have a proposed site plan for the, because it is a raise and reconstruct.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, right? It's
Yeah.
going to the ground. So we would like an actual site plan. Bob, am I wrong? Can we, I mean, he is rotating it a little bit. And even if he wasn't, wouldn't we want an actual site plan as opposed to the original Curtis Street map? So.
Well, where the building permits applied for, we would definitely want an accurate site plan.
Right.
Those new construction.
Right.
Would be.
All right, so, if you do wanna, so theoretically,
You could certainly condition your, decision on that.
right, so, I mean, theoretically, we have the original plot plan of land, which shows the existing dwelling and the shed as of 2003, so if it wasn't moving, we could prove it as to the existing location for this plot plan. If you are going to rotate it, I hate to send it back, I would feel a little bit more comfortable. Although theoretically, we could say, with, you know, per this, with a slight rotation of the existing, where the existing structure would otherwise be, keeping the 1.34 foot set off. The same. And the zoning chart isn't quite complete either.
Yeah, you come in and fill those.
With the survey, plan. So those are the, I think, I don't want to call them deficiencies, those are the things that if they had been filled in, it would have been easier for us to just prove existing and proposed. Do we have any comments from the folks here? Any comments online?
I'm not seeing any hands, no.
All right, how do you guys feel about, I mean, I feel good about it generally.
You know, it almost.
We don't know what we're approving.
Yeah, it almost looks like if you're rotating, you'll actually improve that 1.4.
Right, which is
Or
also-
actually pivot on that other.
Yeah, right, we don't know.
I would make the building shorter if it, so never exceeding that existing.
Yeah, so-
setback.
We just don't know what we're approving at this point.
Right, so if you can come back to us. Again, you're not, it sounds like you're not gonna change really any of the non-conformities, you might even improve some of them, right? Is if you can come back to us with a plot plan, right, of where this is proposed to be. And with, and a completed zoning chart with the existing and proposed setbacks, I think that would get us down the road. So
Okay, so fill out
the zoning chart and give us a, you know, one of these, doesn't have to be this size.
so,
Right.
sure, it means I'm gonna have to
Perfect.
hire a surveyor and they, is that what you're looking for? when you say
I
site plan?
would like a permit plan. you can,
An engineer, you need an engineer.
you need an
Okay.
engineer. So hire an engineer to get you a permit line, and if you're gonna rotate it, as rotated, show it
Okay.
as rotated.
All right.
And you can list where the existing is.
Yeah.
where the existing
Yeah.
location would be. And then if we have one of these with, on it, we have a zoning chart
Yeah.
equivalent, then we know what we're approving. And then we can move forward.
You're gonna need it anyways to get your building.
Get it right, yeah,
Right.
You need it anyways.
okay, we can do that, yeah.
Alright, so again, don't a priori, don't see a problem, but depends what the zoning chart.
Yeah.
Right.
And if it's a problem, we'll just put it in the same spot.
Okay, so I think you want to request a continuance.
Say it again?
I think you'd like to request a continuance.
Yes, yeah,
So that you can supplement your application,
correct.
right? Do you think you can get that done in 2 months? So not this, so 2 months from now? Is that-
I'd like to do it quicker.
Do you think you can get it all?
Depends on get an engineer to.
That's gonna be your problem.
That's why I'm.
Yeah.
So how about,
How are we looking next month?
In terms of availability of space, if you could get it done, yes, you're more than welcome.
Yeah. All right, I'll
The
call
one
it.
problem though is that it has, we'll now be back, so we would have to do another legal advertising for it.
No, he would have to come, if we listed for the October date, he'd have to come back in October.
Right.
If he wanted another continuance.
Why don't we continue them to October, if it doesn't have it done by next week?
we'll continue it by letter.
Yeah.
All right, so do I hear that you're requesting a continuance?
Yes, sir.
Excellent.
I'm requesting a continuance.
I move that we continue this to the October meeting.
What date is that, October one, look?
I believe it's the 17th.
I second, continue to October 7th.
All in favor? Aye. All right, so we will see you hopefully October seventeenth.
I'm sorry, I should have asked another question too.
Sure.
The proposed new building has a height of, it's not firm yet because I'm still working with the board to build it. It's going to be less than 14 feet. Is that an issue?
No.
Okay. Does that tell something about 15 feet?
As long as it meets the building code and zoning bylaws.
Okay,
So there's height limits and requirements.
Sorry, 15 feet is the height that triggers a different setback from the
Right.
property.
Yeah, we're not going to.
So it's not going to be that, so.
Right.
Okay,
It's a good point.
great, thank you.
Terrific, thank you, sir.
Right.
All right. so continue. With that, we will move to the official second application of the Lennox Realty Trust 209 Board of Hanover, requesting special permit finding in accordance with NGL 48, Section 6, Section 610.2B of the Scituate zoning bylaw and or any other relief with the Board of Appeals may grant to allow the construction of a single-family dwelling on a lot with 50 feet of frontage. The property is located in 91 Canal Road, Scituate, Mass. 02066. Okay, just give me 1 second, pull that up. Greg, name and address for the record.
For the record, Gregory Morse, registered engineer, Morse Engineering, representing the applicant, the Lennox Realty Trust. As we just read into the record, it's the request for a special permit in accordance with section 610.2 of the bylaw to create a 50-foot frontage lot at the property. The property is located at 91 Ann Violent Road, located in R2 zoning district. The property previously had a single-family home on it. That home was demolished this past year. It currently sits as vacant land. The proposal here is depicted on the plan on the screen and in front of you, is to divide the property into 2 lots. Lot 1 is a fully compliant zoning lot, no relief required whatsoever. Lot 2, however, is the 50-foot special permit lot that puts us before you. The zoning bylaw has requirements for 50-foot frontage lots. Specifically, you have to have at least 50 feet of frontage. We have 63.78 feet of frontage on Pleasant Street, which is a town-owned, maintained public way. You have to have twice the minimum lot area, where this is the 20,000 foot district. You need a minimum of 40,000 square feet. Lot 2 has 40,054 square feet of upland land area. It has 45,066 square feet total. The plan that we put forth has a note on it, the 50-foot special permit restriction that the lot would not be further subdivided. I believe this meets all of the special permit criteria to be issued a special permit. I'm going to turn it over to you for questions or comments.
Okay, initial questions from the board, and I want to hear from Bob.
The numbers are the.
Numbers are different on
Your square footage.
Lot two.
Lot two.
Lot 2 has a total area of 45,066.
Yeah, 48,466.
What date's your plan, Greg?
This plan is dated August 14th, 2020.
One I have.
Only-
What do you?
May I see your plan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the assessor parcel, oh, that's fine. All the way. Oh,
So the number on the plan in front of me is 40,054 square feet. That is the correct number for lot, for total upland area, it's 40,054
so 45,066.
is the total area.
Area, but
for
not
lot
upland.
two.
Yeah.
The upland is 40,054.
That's,
And if those numbers are different, which they appear to be, I'll make sure you have an update to that.
What was the first number?
45,066 total area. The upland is 40,054.
so that's the lot two. Lot one is, would be fully compliant, right? Yeah, Mike, this one's right.
Yeah.
So. All right, so that was very helpful. Bob?
Not really anything to comment on, it's only requirements for footage, right? The bylaw,
Yeah, I mean, we have no buildings, right, so we're not fighting over the itself, it's really a division of a large lot, two small lots, one of which would be a foot frontage lot. Do we have a?
I do have a question,
Go.
and it doesn't need to be answered tonight, I'm curious. Is the frontage, on Pleasant Street
Yes.
Yes, it is.
as opposed to 89?
Yes, it is. It does have frontage on both. The frontage on Ann Vinyl is 40.75. The frontage is 6378 on Pleasant Street.
So as we look at this and put a building on it, think about setbacks, what is gonna be considered the rear lot line?
Sure. So I look at this as being a corner lot, it has frontage on two streets. And so I'm holding this corner here as the rear and drawing a semicircle. That's why you see that circle.
Or everything else is sideline?
Everything else is a sideline. Correct.
Which again, seems relatively reasonable, I guess, seems relatively reasonable. Right. Board, oh, I'm sorry. Community in the room?
No hands.
I'm just
Oh,
simply,
sorry.
no, the thing's okay. I'm simply here to observe because I'm one of the others.
Okay.
So I'm looking to see what they're doing because every time I go to the town hall and ask, comments always, they don't have anything official yet.
Okay, well, this is the official.
This would be the
Yeah.
first
So this is the first,
servicing of the first.
yeah, I mean, first has to be the division of the lots, right? And no buildings proposed yet. But.
May I have your name?
Name and address
I'm
for the
sorry.
record, please.
My name is Fidelio Rodriguez.
Right,
My home address is 21 Marion Road Extension, but I have a rental property on Pleasant Street.
Got it.
And my mother lives there, so I'm here for the cat.
Great. Perfect.
thank you.
Thank you, sir. And anybody online?
No hands.
Carried. So, where's my? Sorry, everyone, are we good? Are we good?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so I'll make the motion, so,
If you go online, Scituate website, go to committees, boards and committees. Look on zoning. And then on that page, you'll find a place to display the zoning bylaws. We'll show it.
so, I think the one is to not for the creation, it's a for, right? All right, so.
No, that's
One more.
So feel free to read it.
All right, you guys good over there?
Yeah.
No, I mean that. On the application of Atlantic Realty Trust, 209 Broadway, Hanover, Mass, requesting, special permit finding in accordance with MGL 48, section 6, section 610.2B of the Citrus zoning bylaw, to allow, the creation, of the 50-foot frontage lot pursuant to the plan, dated August 14, 2024 by Morse Engineering. I move that we grant the request. That's it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All set on that.
Thank you.
Just give me a second. Here now. Done. All right. So we're here on our final application. For July 18, 2024, Scituate Harbor Yacht Club, 84 Jericho Road, Scituate, Mass. Of the permit planning in accordance with MGL 48, section 6, and section 470.6F and 8.10.2 of the Scituate zoning bylaw, and ready with the board of adjustment grant to allow the addition to be constructed on a non-conforming structure, full house. Property located at 84 Jericho Road, Scituate, Scituate Harbor Yacht Club, and this is the proposed construction, all right, and this is the elevation. Before we get started, is the location. So, name and address for the record, I have one sort of very overarching clarifying question. Please.
Sure. Gregory Morse, registered engineer, Morse Engineering.
Attorney Steve Gardlaw, Massachusetts. Meeting everyone.
Guard, welcome. So my overarching question is, thank you for the rendering. Location, set-offs, everything is still pursuant to the original plan dated February 13, 2024.
That is correct. There's been no changes.
Right, so that's, we're all on the same page, right? That was the. Okay. I will I think you guys go first. We'll see if anybody else has any quick commentary. We've had a lot of public commentary previously, so I give you guys one more / last time on this. And then my intent is to close the public commentary period. Turn this over to deliberation for the board. And then hopefully have a motion or resolution. Okay, so folks, Mr. Clark, thank you so much for your letter. We have that, the board has that, read that, just to be clear. Quickly, if you want to summarize, I will give you that opportunity.
Sure. Well, thank you for hearing us this evening. I do have a question first before I get started. You mentioned that there was a substantial public comment. I was curious, what?
Well, we had opened it, it's over the last few meetings.
Oh, yeah, we've had.
Yeah, no, there's no comment,
I
written comment that you have not received. I
was
apologize.
concerned that
I-
something came up that I was unaware of.
No, we have given the public the opportunity to comment,
No
right,
problem.
so we're trying to.
So I appreciate you taking the time to review my memo with respect to the procedural aspect of this case. And as I see it from an application of the zoning bylaw, the facts that are before us tonight, I won't bore you with a detailed summary. But as you can see, I think that the easiest way for me to summarize it is that the conclusion that I came to, which I think is the intent of the application, is that the relief that's requested is under 810-2C, which is a finding by this board that the proposed extension and alteration of the pre-existing non-conforming structure is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. There was some confusion in watching the videos with respect to the definition of an addition, which is a term that is used on as a local term to identify the extension overall on the plan, but it's not a term that's defined by our bylaw. There was a little bit of confusion, at least that I saw, in references to 810-2B. The application does reference 810-2B, and that is a mistake, like a typographical error, because there's no relief that this board can grant under 810-2B. That is the mechanism that all would be able to issue a building permit if the structure met and the lot met certain criteria. The only relief that an applicant could achieve from 810-2B is if Bob made a negative determination or failed to make a determination, then that person could appeal, an administrative appeal of the building permit, the building commissioner's decision or lack of decision to the zoning board of appeals. But we're not here for that because we didn't do that. We didn't apply for a building permit under 810-2B. The reason that I pointed out, I'm just making the board understand that the applicant's position is that we're here for a finding under 810-2C. My memo does describe this particular application as an 810-2C application, which has been granted many times in the past for similar situations. I understand, and I point that out in my memo, that previous decisions of the board are not precedent. However, the board is obligated to apply the bylaw consistently and fairly to all applicants as they come before you. So that's why I think Mr. Moore spent some time trying to show you other instances where the board felt that it had the authority to grant this type of relief. Now, in this particular case, you'll notice that Mr. Morse has provided you with some renderings, and I would like to talk about the rendering itself. As you can see, it's one structure. It's a building that is connected very substantially by a roof system with a ceiling system in the portico. The purpose for the opening between the two buildings is so that we can access the storage area with wheels and equipment for the tennis program, the tennis balls. We have a ball machine that's heavy that you have to have an accessible route to get to that. We have tennis ball baskets that that we use that roll in and out. And there's a very large machine that picks up the tennis balls off the court. It has to roll in and out. So there's a practical reason why that area is open. We could have just closed it in. There would be no question as to whether or not it's one structure, but it's not practical for us because we need access for things like that to wheel in and out. So that's really my only summary from what we talked about before. What I saw in the videos, having watched them previously, that I think that I could just quickly summarize. I'd rather not take up a lot of time detail with my memo. It speaks for itself. As far as the special permit application for the floodplain in the water resource protection district, it's a simple matter of whether or not the proposed structure will meet the performance standards of that section. If the application meets the performance standards, then the special permit must be issued. There's really not a lot of discretion. It's whether or not it meets them, and that's a Greg identifies that we're using flood-proof vents to comply with FEMA. We're using flood-resistant materials in the areas that is required, and it's surrounded by buildings, so that it's surrounded by other buildings, so it really can't affect the water. The water course doesn't get up there on a regular basis. So I think that the applicant has made a reasonable request for relief for this extension of the non-conforming structure. It doesn't create any new non-conformings. It doesn't exacerbate or intensify any existing non-conformities. As we know, as I pointed out in the memo, the building, the existing structure is 2.7 feet from the front line, the addition is going to be 9 feet. It doesn't qualify for a variance under the bylaw because the variance is example is very specific. We're not carrying that 2.7 foot along the property line. We're not extending that wall as described in the bylaw. So it's a finding, which is substantially more detrimental to the neighbor. I think that in the applicant's position, and I would argue that it can't be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood because it's 9 feet from the property line. And there are no other bylaw regulations that would prohibit this particular structure from existing in its proposed location. There's no volume or massing regulation in our bylaw. There is no area regulation in our bylaw with respect to building coverage, and there is no massing. So there are sections of our bylaw that do talk about coverage in the front yard setback. Greg and I actually did a project at Driftway, under the Transportation Overlay District, where it talks about coverage in the front yard setback. This district, the R3, does not. In this use, the use as a private club is allowed in the district by special permit. This particular use happens to be in existence since the 1940s, so it predates the adoption of zoning in town. So that's where you are. I would ask for relief with respect to an affirmative finding that it doesn't substantially, it's not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing non-conforming. That's the key. You read the whole sentence together, it's 9 feet versus 2.7. That's the existing non-conforming. And then, of course, this discussion. If Greg has anything to add, I turn it over to him.
No, just in regards to the special permits for the floodplain overlay district, it's section 470.6F, which lists the 3 criteria for construction of a structure and issuance of a special permit. Those are that it applies when there's substantial improvement to existing structures which legally existed in 1992. This building predates 1992. We provided the assessor's reference for that. It states that such improvements must be consistent with the requirements of National Flood Insurance Program and FIP, which we have a note to that effect in our general notes that all construction would comply. It also says that any improvements must be consistent with those of the state building code. Obviously, this requires a building permit. We're going to comply with the building code requirements. And lastly, that any improvement shall not affect the natural drainage patterns of the water course. I would argue that at this location, there really isn't a natural path of water. This is a flood-prone area. It's entirely in the floodplain. Every adjacent property is in the floodplain, but this is not really a natural water course. There are structures on all sides of this building, north, south, east, and west, which are also in the water course, all of that. But we're not going to certainly alter the patterns by direction of this addition. I'll turn it back over.
Thank you. Is there anybody online?
I'm not seeing any hands raised here.
Anybody here? So with that,
I just have one question.
Well, I was gonna, okay, well, yeah, that's fine. I was gonna close public commentary, that's fine, before you.
Looking at these renderings, Greg, what's what is current and what is proposed addition?
Sure. So as you look at that rendering, it's the, I believe, the left side is existing.
Okay.
The left side
And then the right side is what we proposed. And the difference between the top and the bottom rendering, you'll see the top rendering there essentially has a small roof terrace over that portion of the addition. The bottom one has more of a traditional roof line. I don't think a decision has been made one way or another, but the underlying structure is exactly the same in both of those scenarios. Right. The size is exactly the same.
thank you for that. We were both made very clear, very coherent arguments. I think you both, for all the time you put into this, start, as always, very clear, very excellent job. I'll turn it back over to the board. Comments? Statements? I think where we are right now, and I think the guard laid it out correctly, is the order of questions, right? First, right, we have to decide whether this is a new structure or an alteration of the existing structure, right? That's the question. I don't think, I think the decision is very, once we decide that, right, one path takes us one way, assuming that this is the alteration of an existing structure, whether this is second question is whether this is an intensification, right, of existing non-conformity. Yes, I said I closed public comment. Yes, so we're closing, I'm sorry, I didn't move for that. I move that we close public comment. Second. All in favor? Thank you for raising. So,
Just by way of clarification on the chair's comment, when you look at 810.2C, you don't even need to make the intensification argument, because it goes right to it's just an extension or alteration of non-conforming structure, goes right to the substantial whatever. I think what you're thinking of is the powers test, so if you make that first question with an alteration of a non-conforming structure, typically is whether or not that extension or alteration intensifies non-conforming. The answer to that is no. We don't get to the second question, but whether or not it's substantially more detrimental. You're done. If it's no, then you should build. In this case, our bylaw doesn't really give you that opportunity. It's but the way I read it. Well, I think it takes you straight to is it substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. So you don't even have to tell whether it's an intensification. I'm saying that against my own argument. We find
I understand.
It isn't an intensification, then I win and Bob should build. Well, I'm conceding that the bylaw doesn't require that finding from you guys. It just goes straight to the substantially more detrimental.
And there are, we acknowledge there are gaps in our bylaws.
It's not a gap. I don't see it that way. I think the citizens of the town of Scituate have spoken, and that's what they want you guys to do when these types of applications come before you. Just go right to is it substantially more detrimental?
Absolutely.
The town of Scituate appointed us to interpret these bylaws.
I am aware.
These bylaws do need interpretations. The chair is correct, when we start from the beginning, says new construction is this an addition or alteration, then we'll get to. You can't say you need relief from 810.2C. You've got to see if you qualify for 810.2C again. I made a mistake in the last meeting. For 810.2B. It is 810.2C.
Oh, you didn't make a mistake, actually, because the application says 810.2.
Exactly.
You were right to address that issue. That's why I addressed it in my memo, because it's important for that distinction to be known. But I don't agree that okay, so what basis are you claiming that this is this is a new structure? How is it a new structure if it is attached by a roof, a substantial roof with a ceiling, and it has an open floor plan underneath? That's an extension.
Okay, so, interesting, you gave us two renderings.
Yes.
One of them has a roof over the breezeway, whatever you wanna call it. And it has,
That still does.
Yeah.
no, one, yes. One has a continuous roof, right, option two. And option one has a roof over a breezeway, and then has an open air area, right, on the roof.
The flat.
Of the new construction.
Yeah, it transitions from a gabled roof to a flat.
They're still, I would say, they're still gonna be married and terminated for waterproofing purposes,
Sure.
so architecturally, it's just two different ways by
Understood.
the portion of the roof, but they still integrate similarly.
Yeah, the top,
And
the
the
top
purpose-
perspective is not dead on either. It's
Well,
kind of an error.
and the purpose, that's fine, but what's the purpose, so in option one, what's the purpose of that roof?
The purpose of the roof in the top option
Correct, of the covered, angled roof
Well,
portion.
it's to provide shelter for the area underneath that I just described to you, that access to storage for our tennis equipment and for our, our tennis pro and his assistant to be able to go in and out of storage area, which is on the existing building.
Right.
Yeah.
And what you said to us is the reason it's separated, right, is because you need to get the equipment.
Yeah, you need to get the wheels open in and out.
So theoretically, to accomplish your intended purpose, zoning aside, you could have built the structure to the right with any kind of roof you want, and have no connection between, yeah, I'm not saying that's what you're doing, I'm saying there's a version of this where you accomplish exactly what you want, but there is no covered roof between the right side and the left side.
I'm at a loss as to why we were talking about hypotheticals. What's before you this evening is a structure that is connected by a roof system and a ceiling system, that's the way the plan was designed, that's what the applicant is asking for, and under your bylaw, that is deemed an extension of the non-conforming structure. You may want to design the project a different way, that's up to you, but that's not what is before this board this evening. And what's before this board is a clear extension of a non-conforming structure for the purposes of this particular applicant's use.
So. Alright, thank you. I've moved that we close public comment.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Alright, so this is the, so thank you for that. Thank you for making the position a little clear.
Could I ask a question? Why are we closing public comment when the last two hearings that I watched, you didn't close public comment before you made a vote? When you say closing public comment, are you closing that comment for Jeff, Greg, and I as well? Or public comment, Jeff?
So when we close public comment, it's time for the board to deliberate.
Oh, I understand that.
If we have more questions for you, we'll ask.
I understand that too. I've been doing this for 30 years, Mr. Karsh.
I
I understand.
understand, so
I'm
I'm
asking-
asking why we're closing.
Because I didn't see the same procedure in the previous two applications, so I'm asking for a point of clarification.
We didn't need to.
Well, I disagree. I think you should have closed public comment on those applications before we voted, but that's just a point of order in my position, but in my, reading of the open meeting, sure. Nonetheless, I will stand down as public comment has been closed. I am available for clarification. Should the board have any questions, I'm happy to answer those by way of clarification.
All right, so I think even applicant and the board are aligned that the order of operation here, whether applicant believes it's relevant or not, is this a new structure or an alteration of the existing structure? Applicant's point of view, it's an alteration of the existing structure. Right? If we find it is an alteration of the existing structure, then there's an analysis that needs to be made regarding perhaps whether this is an intensification of an existing nonconformity or a new nonconformity, where this board has been very careful about not introducing new nonconformities in proposed plans. And then whether the intensification or arguably even the new nonconformity are substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. Or
When you say renovation, are you renovation / addition? New construction or addition /
I said an alteration.
This is either an extension
If you're altering an existing structure via an extension.
or new construction.
Yeah, so. So that's,
I think originally when we first looked at this, I think in lieu of talking about that roof, if you put 2 6-0 doors in that opening, assuming it's 6 feet, Is that still new construction in your eyes, or is that?
It's whether you're asking whether it's an addition, extension of the building, or
New
a
construction?
separate building.
Correct, that's the first question, right?
I'll go to him and say, why are we dealing with hypotheticals? That's not what's presented before us.
I'm good, fair enough.
Right, so there's a version of this where there's the same construction, let's say at the top. And the new space, the new 16 by 16 space, I'm not gonna characterize it, right, is more than whatever the distance is here. So it's an 8 feet wide. and
I'm guessing at least probably 6 to 8 feet.
Yeah, you call it 8 feet or 10 feet, whatever it is. So you go from 10 feet, you do the same thing 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet. Which you can build, which you can build.
Connected with the roof and snow extension.
Oh, well, where the hypothetical stop.
Well, but then you can do it on the other side and you can keep doing it. But again, is this, to your point, where did the hypothetical stop? But if we're looking at something that we're trying to decide, again, I think the first question is this an alteration of existing structure or is it a new structure? Right? That's,
You have to tear into the existing structure in its current state in order to do the extension. For that roof overlay. You're
for the bottom one, I would,
The fascia and the soffit, you're not gonna pull off that fascia or soffit, Chris? Well, correct, there's 1,000 ways. You get my point. Your roof, your asphalt shingles, you're not gonna have to peel that back to marry in that E. No. I wouldn't want you to do it for me.
Just saying you don't have.
Would you, in your profession? Fair enough. Answer the question, I would. So that's why, in my eyes, it is, again, an extension, you have to marry this existing structure into, this extension into the existing structure. Even with concrete, you're not, I don't know what you're gonna do to, whether you're gonna have, there's considerations there as well.
I see what you're saying.
How do you marry the concrete, roughly speaking? You have to take considerations because of the ways they.
You drill holes, put rebar in.
Correct.
You pour one pad up against the other,
Understood, but what's the rebar there for?
just to make a connection to the hole.
Because they're together.
So.
You have to have
I had-
expansion there in case one interacts with the other, there's a lot to be considered there, which I'm sure will be. Yeah, expand.
So they
Yeah.
move separately?
Well, they may do an expansion joint, they may do a rebar, my point is, you have to take into
I
account
understand,
the
I understand.
adjacent structure.
Uh,
Where if it was not connected, I don't think anything we just talked about would need to be made.
so. Recently I've been doing a lot of research into definitions, addition, extensions, accessory dwelling units, things like that. Pouring through these definitions, I did, came across one for gross floor area. It's actually kind of the first time that this is mentioned, that your gross floor area is measured within exterior walls. Okay, additions don't mention exterior walls, there are other, so if you were to tell me what the gross floor area of that building is, I have a separate structure I have two structures with 4 exterior walls, independent exterior walls. Those constitute separate structures. In the letter that Mr. Guard sent us, he mentions that the proposed extension is the extension of a roof to a 16 by 16 structure, a separate structure. You're extending
not
the
what I
roof to
said.
connect,
That's not what I said. I did not say the word separate. It's a
you're
structure.
extending
It's a
it
structure.
to.
Sir, do not read into my letter words that I did not use. It does not say a
It
separate
says-
structure.
He said a 16 by 16
Good
structure.
structure.
16 by 16
Words
structure.
matter.
Yes, they do.
And I didn't use that word, but you're implying that I did. So I'm correcting you for the record.
What's the
That is what
correction?
the-
What's
that
the
is what-
correction again?
He never used the word separate in his
Okay.
sentence. Okay, which is, it's fair, he did not use the word separate.
But he did use
There-
he did use a single story structure. Grammatically, that's a separate.
No,
It's a thing,
no, it's a thing.
it's a thing.
It's a thing.
16 you're building a 16 by 16 box.
Yeah.
And you're tying it in, right, in your words, tying it into the
It's the
existing
extension
building.
of the non-conforming structure. It's 16 by 16, correct? That is part of the
So-
structure.
And what I have in front of me is a plan of a box with a storage locker. Okay, with a drawing of a covered walkway and one, and only one dotted line to the pool building.
I don't, it's not.
That's the plan. We have a dotted line. Right?
Oh, but
There is no showing of this being tied in. There's no showing, that's one dotted line.
He's not showing any roof structures, so it's just because of the.
Because, why? Why wouldn't he? If it's an extension.
Because it's a civil plan, they wouldn't capture the, like here, you don't see the peaks and the valley of this on here. You would start,
But by way of clarification, the common road bearing wall has been identified on the submittal that Greg did on the last week. And I think that your point, Mr. Chairman, is accurate. If you look at this dotted line on the plan, you'd say, well, what is that? That wouldn't, as a layperson, I probably wouldn't identify that as a roof either. But the applicant has presented to you the roof structure that will be constructed based on what Greg has laid out on the ground. So as you can see from that, it's a substantial roof. It's not a lean-to.
So let me ask you a question. How far? Right, how far should we take? If I created a 16 by 16 structure in 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 feet in that, and pipe it into a roof. Is that an extension in your mind? Is that an extension of the existing building?
I'm not trying to be glib, and by way of example, years ago, I had an application with the building department to connect the illegal accessory structure to a main primary residence, because we didn't have the separate structure rule at that time. You had to be in the same structure with a 90-foot pergola. That was a pergola, that's not a roof of this, that was just like a line pergola thing. So I don't know where you would end that would be up to the board. Personally, I think if it's connected by a substantial roof structure like this, and the applicant has a reason for that, you know, whether it's just to connect the two buildings to be able to walk from one to the other in inclement weather or whatever, I think the applicant's entitled to that. You're entitled to do it. This is not a significant distance between the two structures, and there is a specific purpose that the applicant has articulated for that opening, and why we want to keep going. It's a seasonal club, we don't need doors on the opening, it's just in the summer.
Yeah, I understand what you mean.
Yeah, but
That's fair.
yeah, I think if the applicant has a legitimate reason for a 40-foot connecting roof, then that would be up to the board to decide whether that's substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. This is, and again, the substantial detriment is to the existing non-conformity. The existing non-conformity is not the roof structure, it's the 2.7 feet versus the 9 feet. That is what the law requires you to make the determination.
So, and again, at a point of clarification, so I can, under your theory, I can build, assuming I don't violate the setbacks that are at right angles to Jericho Road.
Yeah.
Within that restriction, I can build a wall structure building within 2.7 feet of that vinyl fence, which is the property line, all across Jericho Road to the, right, till I hit the other set off.
No, you're right, you can't, because under our bylaw, extending that wall 2.7 feet requires a variance. If you go 2 feet, our bylaw allows you to make a determination that that structure is not substantially more detrimental. I mean, not 2 feet, I'm sorry. If you go to 3 feet, or whatever, 3.5 feet away from, I was going the other way in my head, but 3.5 feet away from Jericho Road, you have the authority under 810-2C to make that determination. So, but if you want to extend the 2.7 along its line, it requires a variance. That's right in our bylaw.
Right, so 1 inch short of that, and I extend it all the way out, not a problem, and from what, and we have the authority, but would you think that to be a new non-conforming?
I would deem that to be not a new non-conformity, correct? A new non-conformity, like for example, I was thinking about if you'll indulge me in the last application.
This is within, we're asking.
In the last application about the shed, so you made a good point, yes, Bob, we good on the height. 15-foot height limitation in our bylaw requires a different setback from, for an accessory structure. It was a good question, I'm glad he asked it. Now, if he was going to 16 feet, even though that structure is pre-existing non-conforming as to the setbacks for a building underneath 15 feet, I don't remember what the height of the shed is, it's called 12. If you went to 16 feet and you thought he could do that, that's creating a new non-conforming, because now that structure is above the 15-foot height limitation for that sideline setback. You've created a new non-conformity. The Gale case allows you to intensify a non-conforming. For example, the 2.7 foot setback, we're asking for 2.5. We're not. The Gale case allows you to intensify a setback if it's already non-conforming, and a determination is made that the intensification is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. That's why I was trying to explain to the board that the intensification analysis is not necessary here, because we're not asking for a shorter setback than the 2.7. That's why I was trying to get you guys to, you don't have to do it. You can certainly analyze it. I don't think it makes a difference in this case, but yes, creating a new, that's why the Gale case came down, because people thought creating a new non-conformity was actually increasing the intensification of an existing non-conformity. It's kind of odd the way they do it. If you're at 15 feet, you can't go to 14, that's setback. But if you're at 14 feet, you can go 12, because you're already non-conforming, and then the board is authorized to make the determination that that 2 feet is not substantially better.
So,
If,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
does a new building or building intended building have utilities tied into the existing HVAC, electrical? It's coming off a panel, maybe a sub panel, but no new load out.
Yeah, the whole point of this is to give the tennis pro a place where he can
Oh,
sit
understood.
for air conditioning. He has no place right now to sit with air conditioning, so this building will be air conditioned.
Janitors.
Well, he's been there for 20? I think we just celebrated his like 30 years.
25.
25? 25, Adam's here, 25 years.
Paul, do you mind me asking your thoughts? Going back to maybe some of your architecture days?
I'll go back further than that. I should recuse myself since I was the tennis pro at the yacht club.
There you go.
For 100 years in college.
That's awesome.
Statute of limitations, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you might file the comment on that stuff.
I would only say that Attorney Guard's quotation of the state building code definition of addition is correct. And as far as my duties as the building commissioner, that's my Bible. And I cannot deviate from something that's stated as law, which it is law, in the state building code. And it's also stated in the International Residential Code and the International Building Code, which we also follow. So I have no problem with the addition definition here. In my opinion, this is a definition, an addition, excuse me. It's connected I guess if this were a house and somebody wanted to build a garage with an open breezeway between the garage and the house, maybe there'd be a different point of view from the board, I don't know.
But
That's certainly.
why, I mean, that's what that opens up, right? It's building separate structures that are connected by breezeways of whatever width, right? And they are now part of the original structure,
I would believe.
right? And that's the underlying question. Because there is no, right, this could go on, you know, through the whole course of the Jericho Road property line, for example, it's still all along the property line, right, under, Scar's interpretation, I understand how he got there, right, anything that is short of, 2.7 feet, right, by an inch, all across that property line, whether it is, as long as it's tied into the roof somehow, right, so you can have a multi-building structure, all tied with a common roof line and the ability to walk around, right? Covered. That would be perfectly reasonable, because if you're not, right, according to the guard's interpretation, it would be a new building, right? And it would not be, under his interpretation, a new nonconformity, because it's less than 2.7 feet.
I follow all of that.
Yeah,
I think the answer to that is that you've got to look at an individual actual situation as opposed to a hypothetical one. And the board's allowed to determine whether this is significantly more detrimental to the neighborhood.
I think that, if I may interject, Mr. Carson made a point at the beginning that your charge is to apply the bylaw, right, to the facts of the case. You're a quasi-judicial board, you have to do that without any kind of bias or prejudice. You have to do that openly and fairly. So the bylaw specifically talks about definitions. I know that this word addition is not in the section that's applicable, but you're stuck on that because you want to determine whether or not this is an addition or an extension. The bylaw specifically states that the terms that aren't defined in section 200, you go to the state building code. This meets the state building code definition of an addition. So I don't see how we don't get this as an extension or alteration of a non-conforming structure, given what the bylaw says, which is what you are to apply to me.
The difficulty I'm having is reconciling two separate structures, independent exterior walls, as being one structure. And I don't see it that way.
Okay,
There's,
so point me, I understand.
I don't see it that way.
I understand
There's
that,
not a rebuttal to my opinion, but you can go ahead.
I guess what I would say to you is that I understand that you have that concern. Point to the section of the bylaw that defines a second separate structure as two structures with separate walls. Show me in the bylaw where it says that. It doesn't say that. It says to go to the building code for the definition of an addition. We did that. That's what's controlling me. That's what a land court judge is going to tell me when I go before them and ask them to review this case. That's what they're gonna say to me. Where did we get here, Gar? How do we get to the definition of addition?
So because.
Until, my point is, until the
First of all,
bylaw.
we're not hung up, I'm not hung up on the addition definition. We're calling it you're saying it's an extension. I'm saying it's new construction. I'm saying it's a separate building. I'm saying it's a separate building, not an extension.
Again, okay, so where is it defined in the bylaw that this is not an extension? The only term that you're referring to is extension, which is in the bylaw, which is my opinion that that's what this is. New construction is not in this section of the bylaw. The bylaw specifically applies to existing construction and extensions of existing. Doesn't talk about new construction. You gotta apply the bylaw.
For me, Chris, whatever it's worth, this is what drives the extension. Under that fascia, that's just an architectural feature.
Can this structure exist independently of this structure?
Where does the bylaw define that?
Can it?
Yes. Can this structure exist independently
I
of
think
this?
if that's what they desired. But that's.
Every structure could exist
Correct.
without an attached garage or a front porch or a back deck.
Yeah,
There's nothing in the bylaw that defines that.
that's what we're getting at. The separate, the two-car garage connected with just a covered breezeway?
Yep.
is
One structure.
Separate structure.
You were wrong. Under the law, listen, I own 41 Damon Road. I have existing house that was complied with all of the setbacks. It was Mr. Shalhoub's old house, the lawyer that was here for 100 years. And I had a garage that was too close to the sideline. It was attached with a breezeway. I went for a building permit from Neil to put an addition, just to connect to put the family room between the two. And he went out and he saw the breezeway and he said, "You're good, it's connected." So I put the addition between the two. It was connected by, I don't remember how long, maybe 30 feet, something like that, to the two. It was one structure. It was, if I came to you with this structure as proposed, and we had a gross floor area limitation, and I said, "Hey, I'm under the limitation because this side has, whatever, 1,200 feet, and this side has 800 feet, and I'm under the 2,000 square foot limitation," you would say, "No, you're not, it's one structure." You'd come back at me with, "No, that's one structure, it's connected together." So you can't have it both ways. It's either, this is one structure. Your example was about gross floor area before. If I came to you, if we had a gross floor area restriction.
That's just where that term came up.
Yeah. It's
Finally, in the building code, it explained,
Yeah.
it mentioned exterior walls.
Mhm.
Ah,
So I think that the focus for the board, to be fair to the applicant, has to be on what is in the bylaw now. Not what you speculate is in what should be, or hypotheticals. What definitions are we dealing with in the bylaw, and how do they apply to this particular application? I don't see the concerns materializing into the board's inability to grant the relief that's being requested, or that relief would be challenged on appeal by someone else, because, you exceeded your authority by, implying granting the relief or granting. It's pretty straightforward. But I think what we're debating is a great debate if you wanna do something with the bylaw. But right now, today, we're obligated to build this structure under the existing bylaw, and you're obligated to judge this structure under the existing.
Non-voting members.
Well, I think if this was a residential, I think it's clear. I'm having difficulties as this is commercial. The law is less clear with regards to commercial versus residential.
810-2C doesn't make that distinction.
And the courts have.
Not interpreting 810-2C, our bylaw. Our bylaw can be more restrictive or more lenient than the statute. You're talking about 48 section 6, and it does make distinctions between residential and non-residential properties, but our bylaw does not.
That's where I'm having difficulties. And again, if this were a residential with an attached garage with a breezeway in between, I think it's probably easy. It's probably approved. I think that with this being a new structure attached to a commercial side, I think it can be seen both ways. I think that I lean towards that. This is not, that it's new construction and not necessarily a extension. But it could be, I can see, both ways, but that's how I move, that it would be in the commercial setting, that's would be new construction.
I don't think it's substantially detrimental to the neighborhood. I've been fighting with this for like 2 months, so I would have voted for it 2 meetings ago.
I think the board needs, whether this is a separate structure or extension. I think we're at odds. I propose a motion.
You can make the motion.
Can I make a motion that the board finds that the proposed construction at 84 Jericho Road is a separate structure
And that therefore is not. So we get this right. And not a alteration, reconstruction, extension, or structural change to the existing structure.
Yes, that's that.
For the purposes of the moving motion on, I second it. So this is a finding. Right? It's a finding that this is a separate structure. So I'll poll the individuals, so that you, since you made the motion, I assume you want to find that this is a separate structure. Correct. Jerry, you, just for the record, do you believe this to be a separate structure? I do not. So, I believe that this is a separate structure. Right. In the alternative, and I know usually we don't do this, assuming, so this is very unusual, but we're doing it to actually help you guys, so that we can address all the issues, how we want to address it, right? I think, assuming that this is not a separate structure. Oh, and I'm sorry, so voting, we all vote as a group regardless. So, would you find that it's a separate structure or not separate? Separate structure. And it's not separate structure, okay. So that's the vote across the board. So as of right now, it stands as a separate structure, it would therefore need a variance. Assuming that this is not a separate structure. Right, so this is, then the construction as proposed on the plan 2004, again, a finding. Does it intensify an existing nonconformity? I believe that that's the next step that we have to find. I understand if you don't find that, but I think that's the next step. So would you like to make a motion? Or do you not even want to? You want to skip to whether you believe this to be classification of the existing nonconformity? I mean, whether it was substantially more detrimental. I will make a motion. I move that the board find that the proposed construction, new construction pursuant to the plan 2/13/2024, is an intensification of an existing nonconformity. I'll say that. All in favor? Aye. No. Nay. Nay. So on that finding, 2 ayes and a nay.
What if we close in the two sides? Help and comment.
Where we post public commentary, we're moving on this. Okay?
Sure.
And
Can I
then,
ask for a point of order? George, if I could, Steve Yorkman, you closed public comment, but you didn't ask if there was any public comment. I specifically.
I did, you came in late. I asked whether
Who
there
came
was
in
any.
afterwards? I heard him say public comments closed. That's all I heard.
Mr. Chairman, I received a text message from Steve Yorkland stating that the doors to town hall were locked when he got here. I received another one from the other member of the audience. Your secretary went out to let them in. They weren't allowed into town hall, it was closed.
If that's the case, Mr. Yorkland, please. And by the way, we've had this open for a number of days now, so please keep it brief.
I was hoping I wouldn't have to speak, but I want to make one comment if I can. Hopefully this might have some bearing on Chris's decision as to whether this is an addition or not an addition. There's a property that's located on the corner of Stockbridge, Linda Lane, that came into the zoning board to attach a garage, separate structure, to a dwelling. Okay? That was done with a roof line, and the building permit was pulled. Building permit did not include any walls between the garage and the house. It was filed as an addition. Chris, you might be familiar with it, but was that an addition?
You are so entirely wrong. You are entirely wrong. Entirely. Okay. Oh my God, how do you even get off saying that?
Because I pulled the permit.
I know you did. I know you did. And I went home and I looked at the plans, and no, plans are all right there. All the walls, everything, all the elevations, everything.
There's a permit set. what does the permit say? It says per the, I don't know what the permit says. I don't have the permit in front of me. I pulled that permit 7 years ago.
Permit states that the addition between the house was a roof and the walls were not included in the permit. That's what it says in the permit. That's the only reason I'm saying it. It says, that's what it says on the permit. So again,
I don't think
and I
it does.
truly believe
I don't know why
myself,
it would.
well, I truly believe myself that this is an addition. I think it's actually being viewed wrong, and I've been doing this 42 years in the town of Scituate, and I've never seen this decision come out on any project ever that I sat in the audience of any of these zoning board hearings. And I believe it was done on that corner was correct, that the roof line was connected to the garage, and that's properly in addition to the structure. And I think this should be viewed the same way. I don't understand what the
So
difference is.
your whole premise is incorrect as far as your
Reference.
reference. I'll go back and look at the permit and, maybe we'll have to correct, whatever, but that's not what the plans showed, that's not, so the plans showed an entire addition and all of that. So I don't know, where your disconnect is. As far as whether, everything up till this point, I think it goes to George's point, the example that we said of how far do we go? How far can that building be away and still connected by a roof and called an
This
addition?
building's 8 feet, whatever it is, 8, 10 feet, you're speculating on 60 feet, 40 feet, it's irrelevant to this case.
You could continue on at.
But that has not-
At infinitum.
So if we,
And
has
we would have,
nothing to
and to your point, we would have no basis for denying it. That's your point.
Yeah, you have no
Right.
basis for denying this, because
Right, and when
it
you
is a
build
reasonable
the next
distance
one next to
for
it,
a
the same.
portico in a home, in a structure that is being extended. It's a portico, it's simple. I've been doing this for 30 years and I can't believe that we're making such a mountain out of this.
So-
I cannot believe it.
So.
There's got to be a reason why this particular applicant is being called out for this particular project, for this particular extension. There's got to be a reason.
what reason do you need?
Well, Key, I don't know, maybe
So,
maybe at 51 minutes and 7 seconds on the May 16th meeting, 2024, you made a comment that parents with money, affluence at clubs get special treatment over other private citizens. You also made a comment in another meeting that your opinion is that this site is overdeveloped with absolutely no basis in the bylaw for an overdevelopment of this site, because we don't have any area or gross floor area restrictions. Mr. Karsha, you have a prejudice against this applicant, and I am requesting that you recuse yourself from this decision and vote. That's what's going to happen on appeal. You have indicated a prejudice and a bias against this particular applicant by your statement. You need to recuse yourself. You cannot be fair and impartial. You've driven the argument about this being a separate structure from the beginning, from day one.
yes,
You've driven the argument
Yes, sir.
because of your bias to this applicant. That's why you're driving this argument.
So the applicant is a corporation. So I don't know whether my colleague here has a bias.
The applicant
we
is
were-
a corporation made up of its members, and your colleague or member made reference to the members of this club in a
So-
disparaging way.
So
That's why
we've
you are
also-
prejudiced against this applicant.
So I will,
Remember the
so the
comment,
app,
we just characterizing that too.
so thank you for disparaging my colleague here and accusing him of bias. We all
I
vote,
object to the word disparage. I am pointing out point of fact as to what I saw at the report at the meeting, and I will make the application for
so,
recusal with the Board of Selectmen after the meeting.
sure, we've all voted on the first item, this is the next most senior member. On the second item, I don't know where we stood, whether this was an whether this was an intensification, right? So there was a yes to intensification on the finding, there was a yes to intensification on the finding, there was a no.
Yes.
Yes to intensification, no to intensification. And then On the third part of this, the question being that, regardless of whether this is an intensification,
It's not
that was whether that was a new non-conformity.
It's not regardless of it's
Now,
an
hold on. The first motion, the second motion was whether this is a new non-conformity. I want to clear the record, right? The question was, do we find that this is a new non-conformity? No, that was the second question. There's an order here. The second question was, is this a new non-conformity? I apologize for
You're not intensifying or is it?
That's gonna be the third one, right? So is this a new non-conformity? Yes or no? So I
As what, as opposed to an intensification?
no, whether or not it's an intensification. I want it on the record whether we believe this to be a new non-conformity.
I believe it's a new,
I guess in the case of me thinking that this is an extension, I would say no, it's not a conforming.
I believe it is in fact probably not a new non-conformity. New non-conformity?
Not a new number.
Not a new, okay. So on the third motion, is this an intensification of an existing non-conformity? I move that we find that this is an intensification of an existing non-conformity. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor for the intensification? Aye. Aye. All opposed? Nay. Great. So, final finding. Do we believe that this intensification of an existing non-conformity is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood? So I move that we find, for the purpose of this argument, that it is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. Do I have a second? Second. Okay. All in favor of substantially more detrimental? Aye. Okay, nay?
Nay.
Aye. Right? Yeah, so that's where we stand.
That's
We
too
will
bad.
write this up.
Yeah, that's too bad. You just unwound 30 years of basically the board's decision and their interpretation of this bylaw to the citizens of the town of Scituate. You've done them a disservice.
Thank you for your support. Elizabeth, do we have any other?
No, the meeting minutes are not yet prepared, we can go ahead and adjourn.
Okay, I move to adjourn the meeting.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.